My name is Todd. The front door to the house where my wife Angela and I lived was rarely used. We typically entered and exited through either the side door that led into the garage or the sliding glass doors that opened onto the patio. None of this had ever seemed particularly noteworthy until that day. Late that morning, I was seated in one of the wingback chairs, my back turned to the archway connecting the living room to the entry. I have spent countless moments in that chair whenever Angela wasn't home, ruminating on my life and pondering what a divorce might cost me. Their mutual friends would likely pick sides. I would lose the house, face years of alimony payments, and watch half of my assets evaporate. To top it off, Angela was as vindictive as they came. Even separated, I still have to deal with her in some way. It felt like an unending trap. My thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the side door opening. Angela had returned from grocery shopping. Instinctively, I thought about getting up and pretending I have been in the bedroom. If she found me sitting in the formal living room, a space I was rarely allowed to occupy, she'd probably pick a fight. Fights were Angela's specialty. It didn't matter how trivial the issue. She always seemed ready to argue. I have long believed she picked fights just to unsettle me or amuse herself. She had a knack for keeping arguments going for weeks over things so inconsequential that I sometimes forgot what had started them. I remained still, hoping to avoid a confrontation. I listened to the faint hum of the freezer door closing, signaling that she just stashed away the frozen food. Any moment now, she'd call my name or, worse, whistle for me like I was a dog. That whistle grated on me more than any words she could say. Instead of her voice, I heard light footsteps approaching the entryway. Unseen, Angela paused at the edge of the tiled floor, glancing down the hall to ensure she was alone. Meanwhile, I stayed silent, sitting motionless in the chair, my heart pounding. Angela tapped on her phone, and I heard the unmistakable chirp of her dialing a number. "Hi, Daddy. Can you talk now?" Her voice was soft, almost flirtatious. My blood ran cold. Daddy? Who was she calling Daddy? "We're still good for Thursday afternoon, right?" she continued. "I'll call him at work after 1 o'clock, just to make sure he's back from lunch. If he's at his desk, we're in the clear for a few hours. I'll leave the back gate unlocked, just like last time. See you at 2, said she. There was a brief pause, presumably while the man on the other end replied. Then Angela purred, "Sure, Daddy. You can put that thing anywhere you like. You know I love your big, old tool." I felt my heart hammering in my chest as her words sunk in. She added, "Okay, gotta go. I need to track down my boy. See you Thursday." The call ended with a snap of her flip phone. Angela's footsteps retreated across the carpet toward the sliding glass door. A moment later, she called out, "Todd? Are you in the gazebo? Hello?" My military instincts kicked in. My training had taught me to stay calm under pressure, even in dangerous situations. Don't panic unless actively engaged. Gather intelligence. Choose the right moment to act. Drawing a deep breath, I stood and walked casually into the den. "I'm here," forcing an even tone. "I was in the bathroom. I need to run to the hardware store for some parts for the gazebo." Without waiting for a response, I moved toward the kitchen and the side door, avoiding eye contact. Angela turned, her gaze narrowing slightly. "You're looking red from the sun. You better wear a hat, unless you want to peel like a lizard in a couple of days. Oh, and bring in the groceries before you go. Don't take all day." She dropped her phone into her purse on the counter and headed outside to inspect my progress on the gazebo. I wasted no time. The moment she was out of sight, I grabbed her phone from the purse and quickly checked her call history. I memorized the last number she dialed, returned the phone, and hurried to bring in the groceries. Then, without further delay, I climbed into my truck and drove off. Instead of heading to the hardware store, I stopped at a nearby park and sat in my truck, replaying the overheard conversation in my mind. I wrote down every word Angela had said, wanting to preserve the details while they were fresh. There was no doubt about it. Angela was having an affair, and not just any affair. She was meeting her lover in their home, likely in their bed, while I was at work. The betrayal felt like a gut punch. Who the hell is this guy? I thought. The number Angela had dialed had a local area code, ruling out her father, who lived in a different state. I remembered how, early in our marriage, she'd occasionally called him daddy in the bedroom. I have dismissed it back then as harmless, albeit odd. But this was something else entirely. I stewed in my anger for a few minutes before shifting focus to practicalities. Angela had said she would leave the back gate open for her lover on Thursday. That meant the man would likely walk down the alley. Could I confront him there? But the smarter move would be to wait, gather more evidence, and confront Angela with the full truth. Who is he, though? The most straightforward way to find out would be to call the number myself. But if Angela's lover recognized my voice, the plan would backfire. A woman making the call might have better luck. That's when I thought of Angela's best friend, Stacy. If anyone knew about this affair, it would be her. However, loyalty among friends could be tricky. Even though I and Stacy got along, Angela's friendship with her ran far deeper. Would Stacy tell him the truth, or would she cover for Angela? Unsure, I considered Stacy's husband, Greg. Though they weren't particularly close, Greg was a man of integrity. I decided to start there. Never underestimate a woman who's had enough, Stacy said firmly. Guys, I'm done with this nonsense. Done with how she's treated all of us. I think I can come up with a plan to make her spill everything. For the next hour, we worked out the details. Stacy would call Angela, claiming she needed help and wanted to meet for coffee Sunday morning. Greg would modify an old purse of Stacy's to hold a hidden video camera. Stacy would place it on the table to capture every word and expression. By noon on Sunday, they'd hopefully have all the proof I needed. The next morning, Stacy dialed Angela's number. She masked her anxiety with a calm and casual tone. Hey, Angela, I need to talk to you as soon as possible, Stacy began. Can you meet me for coffee tomorrow morning? I'm in a situation, and you're the only person I trust who has the experience to help me. Are you okay? Is Greg okay? Angela asked, concern lacing her voice. It's not that, Stacy replied. Then, lowering her voice conspiratorially, she added, remember that New Year's party? I'm in a situation, kind of like that. A pause. Ah, I see, Angela said, her voice taking on a knowing tone. I think I can help. How about 10 o'clock at that new coffee spot in the mall? Pick us a quiet place to talk. I'll see you there. Angela hung up, a sly smile spreading across her face. It's about time Stacy came out of her shell, she thought. She's been stuck with that old stick-in-the-mud husband of hers for years. She deserves better. And I can teach her everything my sister and daddy taught me, thought she. Stacy arrived at the coffee shop early, choosing an outdoor table under the shade of an awning. She carefully placed her modified purse on the table and tested the camera. The angle was perfect, and she did a quick audio check. The air was still, so there was no wind noise to interfere with the recording. With one button, the camera was ready to start capturing every detail. When Angela arrived, Stacy greeted her warmly. Hey, can you grab us some coffee? I'll hold our spot. This is the most private table here. Be right back, Angela said, heading inside. The moment Angela was out of sight, Stacy clicked the button to start recording. She double-checked to make sure everything was working before settling back into her seat. When Angela returned with 2 cups of coffee, Stacy eased into her rehearsed story. Angela, there's this guy, Stacy began, her voice trembling just enough to sound genuine. He wants me. I mean, really wants me. I don't know what to do. He's so charming, and it's been so long since Greg made love to me. I've never cheated before, and Greg trusts me completely, but I'm so tempted. I thought of you because of, well, what happened at the New Year's party. Am I going to regret this if I go through with it? Angela's face lit up, her excitement barely contained. Go for it, girl. Honestly, I can't believe you haven't done this sooner. Greg is nice, sure, but he's way past his prime. You're still young and cute. I've always admired how good you look. Why waste your time with someone like him? Stacy blinked, feigning surprise. Wow, you really don't regret anything, do you? You sound like you have everything under control. Was it really just a one-time thing for you at the party? Angela smirked, leaning in. Honey, I'll tell you the truth now, but only because you're finally in the same boat as me. Back then, I had to lie and say it was a one-time thing. You might have spilled the beans otherwise. But now? Now we can share all the juicy details. Angela's face flushed with excitement as she continued. It wasn't just New Year's. We actually started up at the Holden's Halloween party. Remember that leopard costume I wore? James couldn't keep his eyes off me, and I was doing the same to him. When his wife was busy handing out candy and Todd was outside by the fire, James whispered for me to meet him on the landing. I slipped away, and we ended up in the bathroom. Oh, he's huge. He takes what he wants. None of that "I love you" romantic crap. Just raw, mind-blowing sex. We did it 20 times between Halloween and New Year's. Stacy pressed further, keeping Angela talking. So, it didn't stop after New Year's, did it? Angela laughed. Of course not. Why would I? James is incredible, and Todd doesn't have a clue. Honestly, after a good session with James, I like to cool down with Todd. It's the perfect setup. Todd's the husband. He handles the boring stuff. James is the lover. He gives me what I need. They serve completely different purposes. Stacy stared at her, wide-eyed, doing her best to seem fascinated. How do you pull it off? Doesn't Todd ever suspect? Are you kidding? Todd's like a little puppy. I throw him off the scent with fights or fake jealousy. I'll sniff his clothes and act like I'm looking for perfume. It's hilarious. He's so docile. He'd believe anything I tell him. Angela leaned back in her chair, clearly enjoying herself. You can do it too, Stacy. It's all about control. Greg's older. He's not going anywhere. You just need to take charge. Screw Greg, have fun, and Greg will still be there waiting for you. Hell, if you treat him badly enough, he'll fit into his natural submissive role. By the time Angela finished, Stacy's patience was wearing thin. She wrapped up the conversation with effusive thanks, pretending Angela's advice had been life-changing. Back at home, Stacy, Greg, and I huddled around the video recording. Angela's words were damning. Her disdain for me laid bare. I sat in stunned silence, absorbing the full extent of her betrayal. Stacy cleared her throat. Todd, what about James's wife, Anita? Do you think she knows? Told Stacy. I frowned. I don't know. If she doesn't, she deserves to. But if she's okay with it, she might warn him and ruin my chance to catch them in the act. Stacy hesitated. I've met Anita a couple of times. She seems unhappy, probably from dealing with James's reputation. If you want, I can approach her. I'll feel her out, see where her loyalties lie. But I'll need to act quickly. I nodded. Do it. But once we figure out where Anita stands, you and Greg are done. I won't drag you any further into this. Todd, you're not planning anything dangerous, are you? Stacy asked, concerned. My face darkened. Nothing stupid, Stacy, but I'll handle this my way. I know how this needs to go, my voice steady but firm. I'm asking you all to keep this completely confidential. If she calls you, don't answer. That way, whatever happens will be out of your hands. I'll take full responsibility for everything. That evening, Stacy decided to take a chance. She picked up her phone and dialed Anita White. Hello? Anita answered, her tone polite but cautious. Anita, it's Stacy Carter. We've met a few times at the parties, Stacy began. Hi, Stacy. Of course, I remember you. What's going on? Do you need something? Anita replied. Are you alone right now? Can you talk freely? I need this to be private, Stacy asked carefully. Buddy's out, and I'm just reading. What's on your mind? Is it something legal? Stacy took a deep breath. It could turn into that, I guess. Anita, there's no easy way to say this, so I'll just be direct. I hate being the bearer of bad news, but James is cheating on you. Not with me, but with someone I know. I thought you deserved to know. The line went silent for a moment. Then Stacy heard the unmistakable sound of sniffles and quiet sobs. That bastard, Anita finally said, her voice trembling. He promised me it was all over a year ago. I took him back on his word, but I told him if he ever did this again, I'd cut him loose. Stacy tried to console her, but decided to press forward. Anita, I know it's not my place to ask, but what do you want to do about this? Depending on your answer, I may be able to help. Anita steadied her voice. Stacy, I appreciate your concern. I'll tell you this much. He's never setting foot in my bed again. I've got a cast-iron prenup, and if I divorce him with evidence of infidelity, he'll lose everything. That man can't hold a job to save his life. All he's good for is escorting me to events and cheating on me. Without me, he'll be in the gutter until he finds another foolish woman to take him in. Anita, I can help you get that evidence, Stacy offered. But you have to promise me you'll stay calm and not tip him off. Can you do that? I promise. I'll be cool as ice. He won't have a clue until I've got everything I need. The two women arranged to meet the next day so Stacy could hand over the preliminary evidence. After hanging up, Stacy immediately called me to fill in. I met Anita at her office the following afternoon. As I walked in, video camera in hand, I introduced himself. Mrs. White, I'm Todd, the husband of the woman your man is sleeping with. Anita stiffened but nodded, motioning for me to sit. I placed the camera on her desk, already cued to the damning section of footage. Here she is, Paul said quietly, pressing play. The video's small screen displayed little detail, but the audio was clear and devastating. As Anita listened, tears welled up in her eyes. I noticed and walked around the desk, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. I know how hard this is, I said softly. I'm just beginning to process my wife's betrayal myself. But it seems you've dealt with James's behavior for much longer. Anita wiped her tears and looked at me, her expression resolute. What are you planning to do about this? I didn't hesitate. I have something in mind. It's going to happen no matter what, but I wanted to offer you the chance to be part of it. If you don't want to be involved, that's fine, but I thought it was only fair to ask. Anita took a deep breath. Todd, that man has intimidated me for years. I've lived with his bullying, his threats, and his lies. I'm done with it. I want him to pay. But does your plan involve violence? I considered my words. It may get messy, he admitted. I'm not planning to kill anyone, but I expect to put him in his place. He's not going to walk away unscathed. Anita's lips curved into a faint smile. Good. He deserves it. Just leave enough of him for me to mess up, too. I left Anita's office feeling unsettled but determined. Despite the confidence I have shown, her words and the footage I have watched still echoed in my mind. Angela's mockery, the disdain in her tone as she described me, cut deeper than I wanted to admit. Gay? She'd called me. A pushover. That wasn't who I was, at least, not who I wanted to be. My conciliatory nature wasn't weakness. It was an attempt to keep their marriage livable. Still, I couldn't shake the sting of her words. By Thursday, she would see a side of him she'd never anticipated. I spent the morning pacing my office, going over my plan for the day. By 1 o'clock, I have changed into jeans, a t-shirt, and running shoes. My pockets were packed with essentials: my cell phone, keys, brass knuckles, and a folded piece of paper with notes. Before leaving, I made a calculated move. I called my wife from desk phone. Hey, it's me. Just letting you know I'll be in meetings all afternoon. My phone will be off, so don't try to reach me. I might be a little late getting home. Her tone softened, reassured by the check-in. Thanks for letting me know, she said. She thinks I'm slipping back into my old routine. I thought bitterly. Good. By 1:45, I was in position. Anita had dropped me off near the park, and I have jogged to my house, slipping through the side gate unnoticed. Hidden behind a large bush in the backyard, I watched my wife emerge onto the patio wearing a skimpy bikini. She unlocked the back gate, glanced down the alley, and then retreated to a lounge chair under the pecan tree. I moved quickly, slipping through the side gate and entering the house with my key. In the guest bedroom, I grabbed a cordless drill and a set of hardware, installing a hasp and lock on the master bedroom door in under a minute. I left the door slightly ajar, ensuring it wouldn't close completely. Then, I prepared to wait. At 2:10, I heard the sliding glass door open. Angela's giggle was followed by the low growl of a male voice. Peering through the guest bedroom door, I saw the pair stumble into the house, Angela's bikini top already gone. They headed straight for the master bedroom, their hands all over each other. I followed quietly, video camera in hand. Setting the device on a dresser inside the door, I adjusted the angle to capture everything. The sounds of kissing, moaning, and murmured curses filled the room as the two fell into bed. My jaw clenched as I saw James position himself between Angela's legs. He waited. 5 agonizing minutes passed as the lovers tangled in the sheets. Finally, I saw James kneel, lining himself up before plunging into Angela with a triumphant thrust. Her scream of pleasure cut through the air like a blade. I have seen enough. I slipped the brass knuckles onto his right hand and stepped into the room. Get out of my wife, I roared, driving a fist into James's ribs with all his strength. James toppled sideways, momentarily stunned. Angela screamed, clutching the covers to her chest. Todd, stop. Don't hurt him, she cried. I stepped back, my fury barely contained. You think I'm going to let you get away with this? Let's see if Daddy can take what's coming to him. James, finally recovering, scrambled to his feet, fists raised. You've got no idea who you're messing with, buddy, he sneered. I smirked. Oh, I know exactly who I'm dealing with. And with that, I launched himself at James, his brass knuckles connecting squarely with the man's solar plexus. James's chest collapsed under the force, and we crashed to the floor. When a man can't breathe, everything else becomes irrelevant. James struggled beneath me, his hands pressing against the floor, trying to shift and get air into his lungs. A high-pitched whine escaped him, panic flooding his eyes. I stayed straddled over him, unmoving, waiting for the right moment. Then, I delivered the coup de grace. Raising my fist high above my head, I brought the steel of the brass knuckles down hard on the center of his face. The sickening crunch of bone breaking under my blow was oddly satisfying. Blood poured from his shattered nose, flowing into his mouth and throat, making his attempts to breathe even more desperate. His gurgling sounds told me he wasn't dead, just incapacitated. That was enough for now. Satisfied with this first phase, I stood up and stepped away. Behind me, Angela was screaming, her voice cutting through the adrenaline pumping in my ears. What the hell are you doing? Are you crazy? Get back here and help him. Her words made me pause, but not to respond. Instead, I walked to the bedroom door, kicked the small wedge of wood I'd placed out of the frame, and shut it. The lock clicked into place as I secured the hasp. I turned back to face her. Her expression shifted from anger to fear as she realized we were now locked in, just the three of us, and she had no defense against this version of me, a version she'd never seen before. Todd, oh God, Todd, she stammered, her voice trembling. I know it looks bad, but you have to believe me. He forced me into this. He's a bully, Todd. He threatened to hurt me, and you. He said he'd kill you if I didn't go along with it. I didn't want to. I stepped closer, my expression cold, unyielding. Shut up, I said flatly. I know you've been with him for months. Don't insult me with more lies. Ignoring her protests, I turned my attention back to the wheezing, bloodied mess on the floor. James was still gasping, his face turning a shade of blue that suggested he wouldn't last long without intervention. I grabbed his legs and dragged him toward the bed frame, positioning him on his side so the blood wouldn't choke him entirely. Reaching into my dresser, I retrieved several pairs of handcuffs. Methodically, I secured his wrists and ankles to the iron bedstead, ensuring he wasn't going anywhere. Then, I turned to Angela. She'd curled up on the bed, clutching the sheets around her naked body. Grabbing her ankles, I yanked her legs off the bed and cuffed her arms behind her back. She yelped, but I ignored her, pulling her upright and shoving her toward the bathroom. Don't hurt me again, please, she whimpered. This is where you spill your guts, I said, my voice cold as I held up the brass knuckles, making sure she saw them glinting in the light. I want the full story, how you met him, why you screwed him, why you thought it was okay to screw me over. And don't forget to mention all the other guys you've been sleeping with these past 10 years. We've got all afternoon, seeing as you won't be screwing him anymore. Angela hesitated, her eyes darting back and forth as she calculated her response. She clearly didn't know how much I already knew. Testing the waters, she began cautiously. Todd, I never wanted this to happen, she said, her voice quivering. He's just so big, and he's so aggressive. He came on to me at a party. It was the Holden's party. He lured me upstairs. I didn't know he was going to. Save it, I interrupted. You mean the Halloween party, right? The one where you and he 20 times before New Year's? Try again. Her eyes widened, panic setting in. Who told you? She demanded. Was it Sue? I'll claw her eyes out. I know something about her that will wreck her marriage, and I'll use it. Oh, you mean her affair? I said, my voice mocking. The one we made up just for you? Yeah, we created that story to bait you. And guess what? You spilled everything on camera. Every sordid detail. It's all copied onto DVDs, ready to send out whenever I feel like it. So maybe think twice about your threats. Her face fell. She whimpered. Sue told you. Sue didn't know the half of it. I shot back. The one who tipped me off was you. Remember that phone call you made last Saturday? The one where you told your daddy how much you loved his big old tool? Yeah, you did this. You handed me everything I needed. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Anita? You want to come in and collect the trash now? I chuckled at her response and hung up. Grabbing Angela by the shoulders, I marched her back into the bedroom. She let out a choked sob when she saw James's bloodied, naked body cuffed to the bed. I deposited her on the edge of the mattress and turned off the video camera. Unlocking the door, I waited for Anita to arrive. She entered moments later, her face calm but her eyes full of venom as she surveyed the scene. Well, Todd, she said, you've certainly left your mark. Anita, I said with a smirk, I saved some of him for you. His face isn't much, though. Anita stepped forward and slapped Angela across the cheek, leaving a bright red mark to match the earlier one. You stupid, stupid woman, Anita hissed. Do you know how many women would have traded places with you for a man like Todd? All you had to do was ask. Instead, you threw it all away for that. She gestured to James with disgust. What do we do with them now? She asked, turning to me. I've got plans for her, I said, nodding at Angela. As for him, he's yours. Anita's lips curled into a vindictive smile. I've got a sharp new hunting knife at home. I could take his tool and let her keep it as a souvenir. She laughed bitterly. No, I'll stick to the prenup. He gets nothing, and I'll toss him a few crumbs if he cooperates. But this mess is over. Angela was allowed to dress, given just enough cash to survive for a few days, and sent packing. I made it clear that her access to our accounts was cut off and that she'd be hearing from my lawyer soon. As for James, Anita saw to it that he left the hospital with just the basics repaired. With his face ruined and his finances destroyed, he drifted into obscurity, his reputation preceding him wherever he went. Angela's life unraveled. She moved in with her estranged sister, begging for help. She couldn't stop replaying the events in her mind, and every time she heard terms like alpha dog or pecking order, she felt physically ill. Nightmares plagued her, mixing memories of betrayal. Anita and I remained distant friends, occasionally checking in when we were feeling low. Neither of us wanted another relationship after what we'd endured. And while I still carried guilt for the rough way I treated Angela, I resolved to never let myself reach that point again. James and Angela were out of our lives, but the scars they left behind reminded us of one hard truth. Betrayal leaves no one unscathed.